look at there is 60 to 75% of people will end up with a chronic illness. Okay.
Woo.
That's 133 million Americans will end up with a chronic illness. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah.
you look at that, 76% will have at least one, and another 50% will have two. And then, of course, we look at the 30% of kids who will get chronic illnesses. Now, when you look at life insurance, most people think it's a death insurance, but they don't realize with the right carrier, right? You're going to get a living benefit that will pay you while you are alive. So you can go through these things and maybe find a cure in another country or be off work with peace of mind that you can go through chemo. Or, there's so many things that people have done with their living benefits. But the worst thing that can happen is when people call us with cancer, a chronic illness, stroke, a heart attack, and say, can I still get it?
Hey, it's Lou and Rhonda. Can we have a real talk today, Rhonda?
Of
Let's
course.
get real with the Pimbers. Today's kind of an interesting topic, something that's kind of near and dear to us, because of the business that we're in, right? We're going to talk a little bit about, it might be touchy for some people. Let's talk about James Vanderbeek. May God rest his soul. May God bless his family and take care of him. And it's very sad that he passed away. But let's have a real conversation. Can we have a real talk about that?
Yes.
But before we do that, we have to thank our sponsor, right? Our own business, the 212 Financial Group. We set up life insurance, retirement planning, college funds for kids. We help set up generational wealth for families and been doing this for the last 10 years successfully, paired up with some top A and above rated insurers, financial firms, second to none. All right, back to let's get real. You know who he is, right? You've heard of James Vanderbeek.
Sure.
Okay. What do you remember him as?
I mean, he played in a lot of movies, including Dawson's Creek, Varsity
Wow.
Blues. There's several movies, like 15 movies.
He did a lot of stuff, and he started acting when he was very young, kinda grew up in the business, it sounds like, and sadly, he passed away recently. Were you aware of that?
I didn't know until you told me no.
Yeah, he passed away recently, living here in Texas, up in Austin. Guy passes away, man. Comes down with he has some symptoms, he wasn't aware. He was like, "Yeah, he thought maybe it was a change of his diet." It turns out the bloating, the stomach aches was not as a result of his diet, and he had, they call it bowel cancer or colon cancer, right? And so cancer, and he died in a very short amount of time. He was 48 years old. 48 years
Yeah, I
old.
think from the time he was diagnosed to the time he died was like 4 or 5 months.
It was a short period of time, and as I feel terrible for his family, I feel terrible for his kids. I guess he has 6. Did you know he has 6 kids? I
I
think it was
didn't.
6. 6 kids. Beautiful family, lovely wife. But here's why I want to talk about this. Are you ready? I'm not sure what arrangements he had in place, but there was a point in time when the wife had to set up a GoFundMe account. I don't know about you, but I kind of have a problem with that, don't you?
Well, here's the thing, Lou. If you are in 15 movies and a major series, I'm trying to figure out why nobody, number one, ever approached him for life insurance. And number two, how they got set up where they still needed a GoFundMe. So I'm definitely confused about that. And I think a lot of people are confused. And I think bringing awareness to this and the things that we do is really important.
So here's the thing. For those who don't know, life insurance today, this is why I have multiple policies, because life insurance today can be used, the death benefit can be used should you become chronic, critical, or terminally ill. You see, the family had to set up a GoFundMe because they expended so much of their asset on fighting this illness. And it may be too soon, maybe, but I think there was a lack of planning there, and I think there was a lesson to be learned in this whole thing. You know, Boo me if you want to, but the truth is this: somebody should have done something about that. Someone should have informed them. Don't you think, Rhonda?
100%, Lou. When we got into this business 10 years ago, I had no idea that I was supposed to have life insurance. I thought it was for rich people and I thought it was for wealthy people. The crazy part is we've talked to so many people about this now in a 10-year span, and wealthy think they don't need it because they have money. And poor people think they don't, or middle America or whoever don't think they need it because they'll do a tamale sale or a car wash or a GoFundMe. But let's talk about facts because until about 10 years ago, life insurance was really a death insurance, right? And now it has the living benefits. So if we look at the stats of living benefits and who needs them, right? Chronic illness, look at there is 60 to 75% of people will end up with a chronic illness. Okay.
Woo!
That's 133 million Americans will end up with a chronic illness. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah.
you look at that, 76% will have at least one, and another 50% will have two. And then, of course, we look at the 30% of kids who will get chronic illnesses. Now, when you look at life insurance, most people think it's a death insurance, but they don't realize with the right carrier, right? You're going to get a living benefit that will pay you while you are alive. So you can go through these things and maybe find a cure in another country or be off work with peace of mind that you can go through chemo. Or, there's so many things that people have done with their living benefits. But the worst thing that can happen is when people call us with cancer, a chronic illness, stroke, a heart attack, and say, "Can I still get it?"
Look, in this case, everything you just described, had they had that, it's very likely that they wouldn't very like very likely that they would not have to resort to a GoFundMe account,
Of course
you know?
not.
Had so when someone gets life insurance, the process is we look at their debts, we look at their income, and multiply that income for 10 years. Vanderbeek has 6 kids. They might be all under the age of 18. So that's a good 10 to 20 years of raising children that she's gonna have to do, right? And so then we look at the payoff on a mortgage, payoff on a house. Then we look at education costs per kid. Then we make a recommendation, and client in the end decides based on their budget. But here's what happened in this case, Ron. I don't know if you know this or not. In this case, obviously there's a GoFundMe. I think they were asking for like $1.5 million. 1.6 is what they were asking based on the amount, the cost that that was incurred along the way. But check this out. They ended up raising about 1.2 million. That's great, but not everybody can do that. Not everyone has those contacts, those relationships, that notoriety, that name recognition. So people are still using GoFundMe as a life insurance, and it isn't life insurance. But guess what? So here's what here's why they got the GoFundMe. It says because the family and children are facing an uncertain future. Of course, but
Just like
the
every family that runs into this.
just
Yes.
like every family, you're absolutely right. So why didn't they plan accordingly? I'm just going to assume that they did not. Okay, based on the facts that I have so far, I'm just going to go with they did not. But here's where it gets kind of, as they say, as the cool kids say, where it gets kind of sus. Right? Did I say it right? It gets a little suspicious. Check it out. It says fans are furious over James Vanderbeek's GoFundMe after a ranch purchase comes to light. Apparently, the wife used it to buy a ranch. Okay, all right. Maybe it was the right thing to do to raise a family. For those of you who would feel that way, it's all good. But here's the thing: if you had a death benefit from a life insurance policy, you can use it the exact same way. But when someone donates to you, they're not donating it to you with the intention of, I hope they can buy a house with it and fill it with cattle and llamas and all these things. They get it so that you can take care of your family. Perception means a lot, right? How do you feel about that? Buying a ranch?
Well, this is what I can say. The average GoFundMe brings in $1,970. And by the way, we've contributed to GoFundMe's for, people who have gotten into critical accidents and all these things. So I take my hat off, by the way, to anybody who gives a stranger money. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, the average GoFundMe only raises $1,970. So with this, them being the celebrities that they are and raising so much money, I am very surprised that a wife would spend it on a ranch. I mean, that's a very odd thing. I get maybe a house, but in any case, so where's the money that she's going to use to raise these kids for the next 10 years? Where's
Right.
the money that she's going to use to raise herself for the next 10 years? It
You see,
surprises me.
again, so they use it for that. I guess they need a place to live. But here's what happens. When you open yourself up for people to contribute to you, you've also opened yourself up for people like you and I and others to question it. Does that make sense?
Of
So as a
course.
father, as a wife, as even as an adult son or daughter, have a life insurance plan. So should something happen to you beforehand or unexpected, no one has to come around and pick up the pieces for you. Because you know what I tell people, Ron? Here's what I say to them: do you want to come back and see the mess you leave after you die? Yes. Would you be curious to see what it looks like? Yeah. Die without life insurance and find out. Families break up, siblings don't speak to each other, aunts and uncles don't come around because someone else had to pay the bill, and everybody's mad at each other. Brothers and sisters don't speak to each other because mom and dad failed to get life insurance. So, look,
It just
hanging
becomes
out.
a big mess. Yet, Lou,
Yeah,
we're literally walking around with cell phone insurance, but people don't have life insurance. And to me, it makes no sense at all. And I get it. They're uneducated about what it really is because I was there. I was vice president of a home builder for many years. I didn't know I needed it. I didn't know that. And most people think they have it through their jobs, but what they don't realize is when they get fired, retire, or quit, that policy's gone. So, what really is the policy? Because 99% of them are only accidental. So, what happens when you get cancer or chronic illness?
yeah.
We have over 1,000 agents in our agency, and three of them have had strokes from energy drinks. They're under 30, by the way, under 30. So, people need to get real about what the needs are of them for their family's financial footprint. Because had this family been sat down with the right agent, they would not be in the position they were in. She wouldn't have needed the public. You know, in my opinion, they're the ones because they make a lot of money who should be giving to GoFundMe's, not asking for them. The
You know,
responsibility, it wasn't there on their part. And that's just my opinion.
you brought up a very good point because now they're living a public life, yet they fought so long to live a private life, right? And now it's laundry is out in the open because somebody failed to plan. Look, this is a real conversation. This is real talk. If you're curious about having this real talk, the talk, shoot us a message. Let us share with you. Explain some options to you. And by the way, we're always looking for talented individual, passionate people who want to be part of our team and help spread the word, even on a part-time basis. You might know somebody
That's
who's
right.
pretty sharp. Let us talk to them. Shoot us a message. Hit me up. This is Lou Pimber. Follow us on the different Instagrams, all these YouTubes of the world, TikToks, and all that stuff. Real talk with Lou and Rhonda Pimber. Rhonda Pimber. My Spanish came out. Pimber came out. Be well, be good, and we'll talk very soon. Bye bye.